So the Conservative leadership race will probably be over by the time you watch this, but I'm not going to wait for it to finish because it's bound to be Boris, and this video really isn't about that. It's about how the media will literally stoop to any depth to assassinate the character of someone they don't like. It's really quite amazing, and the more of a threat they find this person, the worse the assassination has to be. And there just really is no bottom to this. So not only do they hate Boris Johnson because he's not a Remainer. He's a Leaver. He actively campaigned in the Leave campaign. He had the £350 million to the NHS per week bus that they essentially describe as a war crime at this point. He's always made the case, a positive case for Britain, actually, as an independent nation and as a good thing in and of itself, which is good. That's something I actually quite like about Boris. And I think that on this, and he's quite a socially liberal guy. He voted for gay rights and things like this, which I agree with. And so I'm rather quite liking Boris's politics in general. He's a bit soft on other things, but it's fine. You know, the general direction, good enough. You know, and that's my standard these days. It's good enough. And it's not for the Remainers, because he said that on October the 31st, when we're due to leave, he will leave deal or no deal. And that's a good, strong position, morally defensible, from a position of democracy, from a position of sovereignty, from pretty much any position that isn't the Remain position, in fact. So that's a good, solid place for him to be, and I think he realises that essentially, I mean, he said this in the Telegraph, I think we can take him at his word on this, that it's the end of the Conservative Party if they don't deliver Brexit. Yes, everyone agrees, it probably is. This is their last chance at this point, right? So, what do we need? We need, if from the Remainer point of view, is literally anyone but Boris. And they're about to do the votes. The vote's taking place right now. But in the past couple of days, they were leading up to it, and they're like, right, okay, what are we going to do? I mean, this was the 20th, so this was now, 2 days ago, coming to the third day ago this was. So yesterday, when the police were called to a loud altercation at potential PM's home, man, that was a Guardian exclusive. Exclusive! Something bad is happening with Boris Johnson. We're fucking thrilled. Oh, it's amazing how excitable they were about this, right? Police, they were talking about this like this was the most important thing in the world. My God, for an entire news cycle, it was nothing but this. Police were called to the home of Boris Johnson and his partner Kerry Simmons in the early hours of Friday morning after neighbours heard a loud altercation involving screaming, shouting and banging. Okay, yeah, that sounds like it's bad. Really bad. So, a neighbour told The Guardian that they heard a woman screaming followed by slamming and banging. At one point, Simmons could be heard telling Johnson to get off me and get out of my flat. Well, this is very concerning. It looks like Boris Johnson's in for it. The neighbour said that after becoming concerned, they knocked on the door, receiving no response. I was hoping someone would answer the door and say, we're okay. I knocked 3 times and no one came to the door, so they called 999. 2 police cars and a van arrived within minutes. Of course they did. It take forever when it's you ring them, but when Boris... No, sorry, I'm not going to go off on them. Shortly after midnight, but left after receiving reassurances from both the individuals in the flat that they were safe. Right. So, nothing. They had an argument. Someone screamed and someone banged a few things. I mean, you know, they had an argument. They said, no, don't worry, we had an argument, it's fine. Something couples do. But why not? Why not contact The Guardian the next day? Why not, in fact, send them the recording? Because then they can write an article about it. And why not? Because it'll make Boris Johnson look bad. Even though his girlfriend's like, no, you know. And they reported this in The Guardian. Because they had to, I suppose. No cause for police action. So this is just Boris Johnson had an argument with his girlfriend. This is the report. This is it. This is the entire thing from The Guardian. And the Metro. And now the BBC. Well, 9 hours ago, the BBC. This is now, oh look, we're going to sour Boris Johnson's reputation. Because up until this point, he's had a fairly good reputation, to be honest. But obviously, there's very little to this. This is just about smearing. It's not newsworthy, BBC, if nothing happened. I mean, just the very fact police called to leadership contenders' home. Well, maybe he called them because there was a break-in. Maybe he called them to have a chat. You know, but the implication is there. The implication is absolutely there. And they know it. Left-wing neighbours, who are Remainers, who had a particular animus against Boris. in the past. In fact, not just anyone, millionaire's daughter and a Remainer playwright who had previously given him the finger in the street because that's the kind of nice, concerned people that they are. And wouldn't it just make sense that Boris Johnson was a wife beater as well? Wouldn't that just make sense? I mean, he was just doing his civic duty. You know, he'd do it for anyone that Boris Johnson was shouting at. Anyway, the playwright, 29 lives of thing, he became frightened and concerned, and he said he gave his recording to The Guardian because Mr. Johnson should be held accountable for all his words, actions, and behaviours. He was held accountable for an argument he had with his wife or girlfriend. I mean, who hasn't had an argument with their girlfriend, their spouse, their significant other? Just who hasn't shouted at them at some point in their lives? Come on. You've got an unrealistic standard if you think that most people haven't been in that situation. But Miss Lay, a pro-EU theatre writer and producer, was bragged on social media about the incident in which she made a rude gesture to Mr. Johnson outside their building. That was nice of her. Conservative politicians are pretending to respect the memories of the Holocaust. Dead. Jeez, and previously stated Theresa May was responsible for insanely cruel policies. Just gave Boris Johnson the finger. This weekend is unstoppable. I mean, they seem really fucking insufferable. Children of privilege. Who, again, just do not understand why anyone is like anything. But at the whim of some wealthy socialite who's wealthy enough to live next to Boris fucking Johnson, now the media is publishing these smears because they were desperate for something. You know, what can we do to stop Boris taking us out of the EU? We can use the things that the annoying people do. In fact, it's not like it's a conspiracy. It's just a part of a culture. These are a set of behaviours. As far as the media are concerned, I bet all of these journalists are, oh, wow, you're so brave. You're just doing the right thing. This is exactly the right thing to do. Because it advantages the Remain side. Not because it's not the right thing to do. That's the definition. Is it the right thing to do if it advantages the side? And you say, well, what do you mean? And it's like, well, all of these sort of progressive types measure everything in power. Everything is defined along with the context of the power dynamics in which it's located. You can't define anything that they say or do without that. And they'll tell you that. They'll openly say it. It's just most people don't think that way. And most people think more sort of in principle and of what is right and wrong. But anyway, that's why they're doing this. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're sinking to this unbelievable low over Boris Johnson. You know, and I don't mean to sound dismissive. He's a very well educated and quite lovable guy who appears to have done quite a good job in his position as mayor. But he's also a little bit clownish, and I think honestly that's one of the things I actually really like about him, is he doesn't seem to take himself that seriously. Unironically though, this is really indicative of the kind of sickness in the media and their desperation to control events. This, Boris Johnson police call to Tory leadership condemns home, can easily be written as Boris Johnson has argument with wife or girlfriend. That's just as accurate. That's because that's what's happened here. Problem? No, the police were told everything was fine and were convinced enough of that and then left. That's it. That's it. And the media is causing a big shitstorm over it because they think they can use it to control people's opinions. And the thing is, with a certain kind of politically correct Remainer, that is a form of programming. Now, Boris Johnson's a bad person. You should give him the finger in the street.